And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. On today's episode, I just want to talk about what is the type of demographic that is currently in the Pokemon hobby. Is it really just that 28 to 37-year-old age bracket where you had a large group of people that grew up, loving Pokemon really at the height right around that 1999 time period? So they grew up with Pokemon and now they're going into the income earning years of their careers and they just have a ton of disposable income? Or is it in fact like the younger generation that didn't grow up with all the WotC stuff or the Diamond and Pearl or even Black and White? Maybe they just recently got in. Maybe they caught the tail end of Sun and Moon. Maybe they've only been in it for Sword and Shield. Or is it an even older demographic, that 50 and older group that normally you see a lot of those people normally in the sports card market, not so much Pokemon? So that's just what I want to talk about in this video and kind of have the conversation of what type of person is actually in the Pokemon hobby right now. I personally do flock right to that 28 to 37-year-old age bracket because I personally really do believe that is what's carrying this market right now. Because if you think about it, between the ages of 20 to 30 is really where you're establishing yourself in your career. And then between that 30 and 40-year-old age bracket, that's where your growth is going to be most rapid in your position. So you're going to be quickly changing positions, possibly changing jobs, doing a lot of lateral movements in your career, but mainly a lot of vertical movements. So you're really starting to move up the corporate ladder. And then between 40 and 50 are your largest, highest income earning years when you're getting prepared for retirement and going more to the tail end of your careers. But still at the same time, between that 30 and 40-year-old age bracket where you're rapidly moving up vertically up the corporate ladder, at the same time, your income is also increasing very fast. So a lot of times, yes, when people make more money, they have what's called lifestyle creeps. So as you're making more money, maybe you have a nicer car, bigger house, but as you're moving up the corporate ladder much quicker, that happens, those lifestyle creeps happen a little bit slower than you might expect. Sure, you could throw kids in and all that stuff, and yeah, those will all pull down your income a little bit. But as you're, making a lot more money and your lifestyle creeps haven't caught up to you, what you end up with is a group or a generation of people that have a lot of disposable income. And I personally believe that's what we're seeing here in the market. Do I think that the quarantine and COVID and all this stuff also helped to compound because a lot of people were staying at home and they had a lot of free time? They weren't really doing anything. What did they do? They kind of went back to something from their childhood, maybe a happier time. And, you think about one of the happiest things in your life, probably Pokemon. So I think that's a pretty easy path for a lot of people to go back to. So I do personally believe that is a large group making up the Pokemon hobby. Don't get me wrong at all. I think there is definitely that younger generation that's super into Pokemon, and that's a great thing. I think a lot of that is being driven by their parents too. Maybe their parents that grew up with Pokemon also. It's very easy to want to do stuff that your kids are doing if it's something you're interested in or you have experience in the past. Yeah, for a lot of our generation, if our kids want to play with Pokemon, we're probably way more incentivized from a personal level to want to help them grow their collection. So maybe that's what happened too, is you have a lot of kids that were very interested in Pokemon. Maybe it wore off a little bit on their parents. And kind of the reason I'm saying this, that it can't just all be the children, that the parents would have to be heavily involved, is because of how much money is currently in this hobby. And when I talk about money, I'm really talking about vintage. I'm really talking about like the graded card market where we're really seeing like huge prices, huge increases. If it's the younger generation, you would really just expect it to be more in, super modern sets, which we're also seeing an increase there, but we wouldn't see it so much in the vintage stuff because I doubt there's a lot of, we call them 9 to 13-year-olds that are super worried about like obscure Wizard of the Coast Skyridge hollows and stuff like that, and they're rising up the prices of those products. Do I think that's likely? No, I think that's extremely unlikely. But because of what's going on with modern too, we're seeing a lot of people from all age demographics really flood to modern. And it really makes you ask a lot of questions. Because when you would think when people would re enter the hobby or come back into the hobby, normally you would expect them to go back to what they're most familiar with. And what they're most familiar with is whatever set that was around when they were growing up. If they grew up during the heart gold soul silver era, did they grow up during diamond and pearl? Was maybe it was a lot later black and white, which black and white I find less likely. Obviously the most likely being all the Wizard of the Coast sets. We saw a huge increase in, base set, jungle, fossil, Team Rocket we saw explode, in the last year. And obviously all the Neos, the gyms. So that's why I really think it really is centered around that age demographic. But you would expect a lot of people to go back to those sets, which we kind of did see, but we really saw modern really get hammered pretty hard. And when I say it got hammered, I mean the secondary market for modern really exploded. So if people were just strictly focusing on vintage stuff, but what I personally think happened, and guys, this is all speculative. I don't have any facts to basis. It's just what I think is going on. I think what you had is you had this, generation of people re-enter the hobby, and they really went after modern because of a couple factors. One, modern was really hot. Modern had great financial potential in the short term. What modern is going to do in the long term, I have no clue. But in the short term, we saw huge increases in price for a ton of products. You don't have to go back very far to see huge dollar amounts. Go back to the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. What set was on the shelves January 2020? Cosmic Eclipse. What are Cosmic Eclipse booster boxes doing? Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, screw it. Let's just say what is a booster box for any of the most recent 5 sets with the exception of Battle Styles doing. We could just go Cosmic Eclipse booster boxes, Sword and Shield, Rebel Clash, Darkness Ablaze, Vivid Voltage. Those are just the most recent sets with the exception of Battle Styles, which is currently on the shelves. All those booster boxes are all almost double, that $90 to $99 MSRP point. Cosmic Eclipse being like 5 times that. So I think a lot of people that were used to the vintage stuff was super drawn into modern because of those price increases, and because while modern was very scarce and hard to find, it was still available. Meaning, if you tried hard enough and you really went to your stores every day, yeah, we were in the middle of a pandemic, but you know what I mean. If you really tried hard, if you went to your Targets, if you went to your Walmarts, if you went to your GameStops, if you went to your Best Buys, if you went to your Party Cities, if you went to your Barnes and Nobles, and all the freaking stores in between that have Pokemon products, if you really tried hard enough, you were able to pick up some product. And a lot of that generation of collectors also grew up in 1999. And don't forget, guys, during the original base set, yeah, we saw like 8 waves of base set in 1999. You know why? Because it was really hard to find. So I have a feeling a lot of that collector group still had that, mindset that Pokemon was very scarce and was hard to get. And I also think with online and everything, if you were willing to pay money, you could potentially just pick up any modern product you wanted. And when it comes to a lot of vintage stuff, especially when it comes to the sealed product area, when you had a lot of people re-enter the hobby, what do people love about Pokemon? People love the chase. Sure, you can try the shit on a little bit or whatever people like to do and call it gambling and stuff. And yeah, I guess if you want to break it down to the semantics of it all, I guess it's gambling. But think about it, guys. One of the biggest, most important parts of this hobby is that chase, is to want to open packs. So if people were coming into the hobby wanting to relive that stuff, what we saw happen with the price of base set and, those prices exploded. Very quickly, packs ran away from people. You can't go back and spend over $500 to rip a pack of, even unlimited base set. Expected value being almost nothing. But what people saw was this very low, and call it extremely low, entry point for modern. And when I say extremely low, if you want to go out and get a booster box for $99 or $90, if you get lucky, yeah, we've seen prices creep up a little bit, but we've already seen battle styles booster boxes creep back down to that $99 mark. But anyways, the cost, the cost to join and the entry was so low when you really break it down. Even, pick up a single booster pack, $4 and change at Target or Walmart. That is such a low entry point for this hobby. And if you want to go a little higher, maybe you go get an ETB for $39.99. You want to go real high end and go Shining Fates or Hidden Fates, you get lucky. You pick it up for $49.99. These entry points are super low. So I think it just made it so much easier for people to start opening packs and really get into it. And I've always said it, and I still to this day believe it, and it's never going to change. If you really want to be in this hobby, you need to do a lot of different things. You need to have sealed product. You need to have, singles. You need to have graded singles. You need to grade cards yourself. But most importantly, you still need to open up some product. Because opening product is what this hobby really is all about to me. And I think that's, like I said, a huge point for a lot of people. But a huge part too is learning the sets, learning the cards, really diving into it. And the only way you could really learn the sets and really dive into it is by opening up a lot of product. It really is. If you really want to go into it and start to understand the cards in the set, appreciate the artwork, and do all these things, the only way you could really do it is by opening packs. Sure, maybe you can go on Bulbapedia or whatever, look at set lists and see the cards that are in the set, but it's not the same. And I think it would be really hard to find me somebody out there that can say, yeah, that is the same to just go look at a Bulbapedia set list and, understand the sets. You got to experience it. But experience it, it's all bundled together as one. And the reason I do this is because I try to talk it out. I try to look at what I see just from message boards and going to the stores and standing in line and seeing the people. I'm a big people watcher. I love to watch people. I could spend all day just watching people. But as I'm in Target and Walmart and stuff, and I watch the people who go up and they're buying the Pokemon cards, I really do watch them. And I'm just a little nervous that with this huge flood of people, I wonder if as fast as so many people came into the hobby, will we just see them all leave as fast as they came in? They'll all just go out. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that could go into play with that. One, a couple really bad sets. People start to lose money, and yeah, I think everybody's in it just for the money? No. But do I think that people are very aware of the dollar amount that a lot of this cards and a lot of these products are worth? Yes. I think people are very aware of the fact, and they're definitely keeping up with a lot of the market. So my fear is once people start to see that going out and buying packs, that there's no longer any sort of financial incentive to open up a lot of packs, that people who got into the hobby for what could have at the very beginning been the right reasons, but they ended up more or less getting blinded by the wrong reasons, and that's more just the dollar amounts and nothing else, and maybe they pulled back and they didn't care as much about Pokemon as maybe I would hope they would, or maybe you would hope that they would. So what we could see is if all these people leave, we could see like, a very quick or at least a very fast temporary crash in the market, because what you really need for a crash to happen is for the money to be pulled out of the hobby. But at the same time, I do believe that anytime you have an influx of new collectors and new investors, you're going to have a bunch of people who stick around. But I think that's why it's very important that channels like mine exist, other channels exist that are out there that really want to educate and want to talk through things and explain the people, and don't want to just take advantage of people from strictly a financial sense. And the reason I say that is because the people that will stick around will be the people that don't have sour taste in their mouth, who don't get burned by every single person out there trying their best to sell Charizard promos from the Hidden Fates tins, and telling them that that's $1,000 card. Like, those are the people who will eventually get burned out. And we've said it before, and I've said it before. Don't get me wrong. Vintage pack breaks could be a lot of fun, could be exciting to watch. I enjoy watching them. What I don't understand is the people out there that are spending a ton of money, on consecutive days or weeks to get in all these box breaks, and you wonder, are you just extremely rich? You have just a stupid amount of disposable income? Or are you really blinded by the fact that you just think you're going to get a huge return from all these packs? And if you do enough of that shit, eventually it's going to catch up to you. And like I said, you'll get that super sour taste in your mouth. And I'm just afraid we're going to see so many of those people really leave the hobby. And like I said, those people spending a lot of money on these packs are the ones bringing in a lot of the money. And now this is where I'm also, I don't know, flip-floppy on, or definitely question a lot, is the people who are bringing all this money into the hobby, is it intelligent money or is it stupid money? And I don't mean to like be cynical by saying that some people are stupid with the way they spend the money, but what I'm really trying to say is, are people just so uneducated on the market that they're willing to throw out what I would consider big dollar amounts? I don't know how many people really can go out there and just spend thousands of dollars on stupid, purchases, and not spend a lot of time and research it and decide, like, is this something that makes sense? Are there better deals out there? Or is it just really full of that FOMO from a lot of people? Or where they just hear somebody talk about a card, or they see one previous sold auction that was shield bidded, and they're like, oh, well, if this card sold for $18,000 even though it was full of shield bids, oh, I'm getting a deal with this card at $9,000 or $8,000, and maybe they're still overpaying like by thousands of dollars. And I wonder if those people, how much of an impact they had on the market in the last couple months. So I am curious about that, because a lot of people do have the conversation about market corrections. And I think the conversation about market corrections is a great conversation to have, and it's an important conversation to have. And if you're not having that conversation, it's probably going to hurt you in the long run. But I've always tried to express on this channel too, is you really, if you are worried about market corrections, you really need to start moving your money or moving your cards into areas of the hobby that, I don't know what phrase you can use. I don't want to call it recession proof, because it's not like Pokemon's going to go through this recession. But at the same time, I do in a way want to use that phrase, like recession proof cards. And those are areas of the hobby where the people that are really in the market for those cards are in the hobby for all the right reasons, and they really had to go down the rabbit hole a little bit to get there. And, could that be short sighted? Maybe by me, because I'm just assuming that new collectors don't jump down that rabbit hole and really get into the niche areas of the market. And, when I think of new collectors, a lot of the times I do have like jaded thoughts or jaded opinions where I don't think they're, making all their purchases based off of the PSA pop report. I don't know if they're really looking at the PSA pop report. I don't know if they're super familiar with grading standards. Or do they just understand that cards have tens and that's it? And they don't know like what the process was to get that 10, what were cards like from that set, were there print quality issues, what's the scarcity versus rarity, like all these things that all of us think about when it comes to every single card. And to talk about every single card and talk about the rarity, scarcity, print qualities, how much we think are out on the market, how much we actually know is graded with pop reports, to take all these factors into account for every single card to do like in a video would be impossible. But to do it on a small scale of just the cards you're purchasing, it doesn't take too much time or that much effort. And a lot of these cards, if you are been in the hobby for long enough, you could kind of rifle through all that on your own and make a lot of good informed decisions. But these are just all the questions, all the conversations I like think about when I think about all the new people coming into the hobby, and I just wonder where we're going to wind up in a month or two or 3 months, or maybe we'll just look at the timeline when it comes to the 25th anniversary. Because if we do see a lot of people drop off, it will still be interested to see where the market is in a few months from now. And I think it's good to have these speculative kind of conversations and have hypotheticals and try to talk things out. Because if you're not trying to do these hypotheticals, and it's very easy to stick your head in the sand a little bit, and or stick both fingers in your ears and hum and just ignore everything that's going on. I think a lot of it is you got to make your own decisions. You got to make your own rational decisions and look at the market as a whole. Look at it from a micro level, on a very small scale, but then look at it at a macro level too. And look at every single thing in between. Because I don't think you can just pick one example or one area of the hobby or one card or one set and talk about the entire hobby as a whole. I don't think you can do it. You really got to spend the time, you got to do the due diligence and really look at it as a whole. It's the only way you could do it. And right now I am seeing a lot of warning signs, but at the same time, I'm also seeing a lot of stuff that's very counterintuitive to the warning signs. Definitely being a huge counterintuitive, thing I'm seeing right now in the hobby are the huge demands when it comes to pre-orders. And another huge demand we're seeing is for Japanese pre-orders. Normally, Japanese pre-orders aren't as crazy as we've recently seen. So if you just looked at that area of the market, you would say, holy cow, Pokemon is at the highest it's ever been because of, the Chill and Rain pre-orders. Evolving Skies. Obviously, we haven't really seen many pre-orders for that. We're still hearing about allocations for a lot of these sets being really small. And if you have really small allocation numbers, that means you got a lot of different LGSs and different companies and people with, distributor relationships trying to buy a ton of product. And thus, they're getting small allocations because everyone's trying to do that. So if you just looked at that and ignored everything else going on in the hobby, you would say, holy shit, Pokemon is at the highest point ever. But then you go on eBay and you start looking at singles prices and you start to see a lot of the graded card market starting to drop a little bit. You're really seeing a couple tens hold okay, but really starting to see drops in nines and tens. And I think you're seeing the change in the market there. I don't know. You got to look at the market as a whole and you got to think I guess when you think about a crash or you think about a huge pullback in the market, you just think of the graph where, you're going up, and then you drop right off the cliff and it's just a crash down to the bottom. And we're not really seeing that for Pokemon from the hobby as a whole. Sure, you could see a little section, so it's a very interesting time. And I do wonder how much, to go back to the topic of this video, is the age demographic really, propelling this? And if it is that 28 to 37-year-old age like range, I am worried that with the flood of people coming in with that age bracket, that you can start to see a few things happen. One, people just get totally burnt out and totally price fatigued because they're trying to, more or less play catch up for missing out on collecting Pokemon cards for the last 15 years. And to try to play catch up and go 15 years in the past and get all these sets, yeah, you will see price fatigue real quick. Or you start to see a lot of people really stacking up on modern product. And guys, historically, the collectors and the investors in the hobby weren't really picking up as much sealed product as I personally believe a lot of people are really holding on to. And that just, was the truth. For a lot of these older sets, people didn't feel the need to go out there and buy every single product from that release. Every single collection box, every single, single pack, double pack, 3-pack check lane blisters, ETBs, booster boxes, and, tins and everything that comes in between. People never felt the need for that. I never felt the need for that. I'd go out there and I spent a lot of time just picking up single packs once in a while. Go to the store, pick up like 3, 4, 5 maybe. Man, not even 5. That'd be, I guess $20, Get a booster box here or there for a lot of these sets, and that was it. And you kind of just wait for the next set to come around. But I don't think we're seeing that right now. I think we're just seeing people go really hard at these modern sets, and I don't know where they're putting it all. Maybe they just have like piles and piles of this shit in their basement or in their spare room or their guest bedroom or whatever, So it is interesting to see, like, will we see that type of people like start to pull back a little bit and realize like, maybe you're nuts. But no, like I said, I just want to have the conversation in this video. And what do you guys think the age bracket is? What do you think the demographic is that's really propelling this hobby? Did I bring up like any valid points for like why it could be a certain age demographic? But hey, listen, this is just a conversation. I just figure this was something interesting to have. But listen, if you've heard me rant like a maniac for the last, I don't even know how long I've been talking for, do me a favor, go down below, hit that subscribe button. Other than that, help the channel out a lot, especially with the YouTube algorithm. Hit that like button, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.